Hi, I'm Alice.
And I'm Greg.
And we're finally back from our travels.
Thank goodness. A little travel is good. A lot of travel can be very wearisome.
Yeah, it can be exhausting living out of a suitcase. In our case, a little carry-on, which we decided to take on as a challenge. We had traveled with bigger suitcases before, but this time it was travel with carry-on, and it works. It's great, actually. It makes you realize how much you don't need.
Unless you're making video blogs or vlogs, because then you realize that you're wearing the same t-shirt 4 days in a row.
Yeah.
Not good.
Well.
Not a good look. But yes, it can be done. You can travel to Europe for 3 weeks with a carry-on. You just have to make sure that you pack wisely. So it was fun. I think traveling was great because I've always wanted to travel. And now as we're retired, we have a little bit of time to travel. And we had opportunity to travel, so we took advantage of it.
I think part of it was that we had a purpose. Everywhere we went, it was half work. And by work, I mean stuff that we enjoy doing anyway. Like we traveled part of the time because I was playing in a band here in Mexico City called Lucia y los Alfileres. And when our friend Allison Wolf came out, we did some shows together. And that was really fun. So we got to go to a few different cities and explore that. And then I was invited to go speak at a conference. And so that was also with a purpose. And what's nice about that is that when you go to those places, you have people there that are welcoming and greet you and show you around. So it's not like you're just stepping in cold.
Yeah, it's like you've got built-in friends waiting for you. I was lucky enough to be invited along. I did get to show some of my photos in Portugal, but the rest of the time was just a pure enjoyment for me and learning about each destination. So we went to Portugal, we went to Spain, and then we came back and
did a lot of traveling within Mexico City too. Within Mexico City and in Mexico in general too. We went to a few different states. So we want to kind of debrief we need to kind of think about like what all this travel meant to us, and we want to share that process with you. We haven't fully digested all our experiences, so we're going to do that here. Do you want to join us for digestion? So Greg, do you have any like general impressions on travel, or does any place stand out for you? Any like tradition or custom or food or drink that you hadn't tried before that really like jumps out at you? It's like, wow, glad I got to do that.
Stepping back in time in history to some of the historical places we went was my favorite. Seeing artwork that I've only seen in books and seeing it up close was amazing. So museums, I think some of the monasteries that we went to were fantastic. And I'm a secret goth. I'm a goth at heart, so going into real Gothic cathedrals and Gothic monasteries is pretty thrilling for me. But
secret goth.
Secret goth.
So for me, I think like I really enjoyed certain places that have like standout things, like the Cosmo Vitral in Toluca, which was totally unexpected because everybody here in Mexico City had kind of talked down about Toluca. It's kind of the little sister of Mexico City. It's a big city, but it's not as big or cosmopolitan as Mexico City. So people here don't always have a lot of nice things to say. And I'm speaking in generalities because just the people I met didn't have a lot of nice things to say. But I have to say that city really surprised me. And the Cosmo Vitral is just gorgeous, and I could spend a day just looking at all the details in that. But I agree, you can also go to the Reina Sofia Museum and just like, wow, all this artwork that I've read about, like these artists that I've never seen their work in person. I've seen it in books or on the internet. Matisse, Gali, did I say Gali? Dali. So Matisse and Dali and Picasso, Guernica. Yeah, so it was really exciting seeing that stuff. It's also like the little unexpected things, like going to Cuernavaca and ending up at a temazcal, which was something I had never even heard of. It's a sort of sweat lodge, and we did do a whole video on the Temazcal, so if you want to take a look at that, we'll link it. But that was something that was kind of intriguing to me, unexpected. Mm-hmm. I didn't go in. I was a little afraid of going into a sweat lodge, but it does have like, pre-Columbian roots, and I was intrigued, and I probably would do it in the future.
So many different experiences. Obviously, Alice traveled a bit without me and went to some different places. But, if we go back over the past year and review every experience we've had and documented in our video series, I mean, the culture here in Mexico City and in Mexico is so vibrant and so rich. You could spend a whole lifetime or several lifetimes really immersing yourself in it. And then stepping back into Europe, to Portugal and Spain, and seeing where the roots of that part of the influence on Mexican culture came from was equally eye-opening for me.
Yeah, like seeing the tiles in Portugal and thinking like,
it's azulejo.
It's azulejo. That's that's what we associated for our whole lives. I've always associated azulejo with Mexico City, with Mexico in general. But now we see that there was probably a Portuguese influence there.
Mm-hmm. The influence of the Arabic, the Spanish Arabic people.
Yeah.
That translates into al pastor, which is one of the staple foods of Mexico City. It's a style of taco that is shaved, right?
But let's go back let's go back a little bit and tell them, because one of the things that I don't think we really, I don't know if you knew it, but I didn't know a whole lot about Al-Andalus, which is the kingdom that the Moors had in what is now Spain, right, and Portugal. So the influence of the Moors on what is now, Spanish and Mexican cultures, and probably other cultures as well. So that was really eye-opening. It feels like the more you travel, the more you want to go back and research, and it's like an invitation to history, right? You see something, it's like, where did this come from? And it's an exciting way to approach history.
I agree. The thing I took away from our travels was just seeing connections, making those connections between what I thought were disparate cultures, seeing how there was like influence and then influence back, these cross cultural pollination.
Yeah.
Alice, part of our travel was retracing your family's roots. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had a desire to go to Basque Country for a while, just because once I realized that I had Basque heritage, I also realized I know very little about Basque history and the Basque Country and Basque culture and lifestyle. So I wanted to research that. And I think, I really believe that you can put ideas out into the universe and they kind of start falling into place. And I discussed this when we were in Portugal with a group of professors who were having a meal with us, drinks with us actually. And I think it got the ball rolling, because when we got home, we got an invitation to go to Basque Country. And I just jumped at that. I really felt like I wanted to trace my heritage a little bit further back. I had already started tracing it on Ancestry during pandemic because I had a lot of time on my hands. So I knew I could trace it back to like the 1600s, and I knew exactly what town my family came from. So that was really rewarding, being able to walk through those streets where my, where my family came from, and imagining. And I think a lot of this, like tracing your roots, is kind of make-believe, It's like you have a few facts about your heritage. You have a few facts about where people were born, or where they were baptized, or where they got married. And those are facts, documented facts. But then you also probably have an impression of like a couple of my great grandfathers were captains. And I was wondering, like, what does that mean? Were they like seafaring captains, or were they military men?
That's the sign for seafaring.
Seafaring. Or were they military men? Or what was that? And then we also went to an area where in Burguete, which is where they're from, where there were witch burnings. And I'm like, wait, were there were parts of my family witches? I don't know. It's fun to pretend, fun to imagine. It's just all fuel for the imagination. I also, when we went to Chihuahua, when we went to Parral, specifically where my father was born, I could really imagine him walking those streets, knowing like that cathedral was already there when my father was a young man. That's the mine that he probably worked at. I know I have a card at home. It's an ID card that I have in the basement of my house in Los Angeles, that says it's a mine ID. So I knew that my father worked at a mine in Chihuahua, but I wasn't sure which one, and likelihood that it's that one is very strong. So I am going to go look for that card, of course, and find out if it was Lapi at the mine. But just the fuel for the imagination is really cool.
It is cool to imagine our ancestors and what their lives were like, and the struggles they had that brought them to strange new countries, right? Strange new places because you can't really get more different terrains than Auritz Burguete and Parral, Chihuahua, or Naica, Chihuahua. And just to imagine what they must have felt like coming to a strange new world and leaving everything behind.
But some similarities are the witches.
Well, yes, maybe they brought that with them.
Do you think you'd want to do that, Greg? Do you think you'd want to go see like your grandparents? Yeah. I know your parents are from the United States, but your grandparents, some of them are from
Mexico, and on one side, and on the other side from New Mexico. Yes, I'd love to go see Guanajuato. I've always wanted to visit Guanajuato, so that hopefully that can happen sometime in the next year or so. And then on the other side, my family's from New Mexico, also miners. Yeah, interestingly enough, from mines in New Mexico, which go back to the 1600s. Yeah. So.
Yeah, how do you go from like having a family that were like captains to like, oh, now you're miner?
So they wanted the gold, right? The Spanish and the Portuguese wanted the gold, so that makes sense.
Yeah, give us your gold. Yeah. All right. So when we were in Chihuahua, I think Greg and I finally realized we really don't know a whole lot about Mexican history. We thought we did. We thought we were like, oh yeah, we know like it's Independence Day. We know it's not Cinco de Mayo, and like we were kind of feeling cocky. It's so basic what we knew. Mm-hmm. We had a lot to learn. I think the more that we traveled and visited museums and read histories, we just became aware of our lack of knowledge. So how important do you think, as Chicanos, I mean, obviously we were brought up with American history. Mm-hmm. So how important do you think it is as Chicanos to know Mexican history?
Speaking for myself, yes, very important. I think my lack of knowledge of Mexican history became very glaring to me. And I realized that what I had been taught growing up in American schools was a very distorted and one-sided view of history. To realize how Mexico as a country had suffered invasion after invasion and really had been subjected to attempts to colonize it by various different European countries, and then North America, from the United States, incursions from the United States, repeated incursions. Yeah. And not understanding the evolution of the move for independence in Mexico and how it had several chapters. Also, in visiting some of the historical museums, I realized that I had some knowledge or familiarity with some of the key figures, Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa, but I was missing a lot of other key figures in the revolution, some of whom are women, who have largely been written out of history. I think the more we visited museums, the more my curiosity grew, because I realized I had huge gaps in my learning. So I'd love to go back and learn more about Mexican history.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it is important, but also I think that no matter where you're from, your country's going to have a point of view and their telling of history and how it relates to them. And visiting Spain, we did get the perspective of like them celebrating El Día de la Hispanidad, which was like Hispanic
It's
celebration, right? Like in from our perspective, it was like, wow, this is like celebrating going out and like colonizing all these countries. But it's not viewed that way there. There it's seen as like brotherhood of nations that we've colonized. But so each place has its perspective, and we realize that Mexico has its perspective, the United States has its perspective, and Chicanos have their own perspective as well, because we are neither completely seen as one thing or the other. Although I feel like and this is my own personal Chicana point of view, I feel that I am fully estadounidense. I was born there, obviously, and I feel like I have a tie to Mexico. I am now a citizen of Mexico as well, but I also recognize that I don't have the same cultural upbringing as someone who was born here. So I think all this like studying of history just helps you arrive at a more nuanced view of what actually happened in the past and what went into what makes us Mexican, or what makes us estadounidense. You'll see me avoid the word American whenever possible, because obviously Mexico is part of America, as is Canada. So it's not used here. It's estadounidense is used more commonly here. So, but it is difficult because there is no estadounidense in the United States, and in the English language, it's not common to say that. I do think Mexican history is important, at least to round out your perspective.
Mm-hmm. It gives you a better appreciation of the realities of history, as opposed to the way we're indoctrinated in school. And I'm sure Mexicans are indoctrinated in a particular version of history as well.
Yeah.
So
I have to say that there have been times when I've been here in Mexico where people have made disparaging remarks about people from the United States in my presence, and I'm like, oh, like it did sting a little bit, because I identify as part of my yes, as someone from the United States. But then I also have to think like, okay, but as someone from Mexico, how true is that? Are we gentrifying, or are we doing this or that, whatever it is that the accusation is? So it does sting a little bit. It's hard being Chicano. Yeah. So Alice, we visited your father's birthplace. Do you think you would want to visit the birthplace of your mother, Torreon? Yeah, I definitely want to go to Torreon. I still want to see all kinds of places, even places that are not related to my background. I still want to go to Oaxaca. I still want to go to, just Puerto Vallarta, where we now have friends there. So yeah, we want to travel a lot. We are in a position right now where we might be seeing some changes in the coming year. Those changes have not completely fallen into place yet, so we can't tell you about them. We could, but we don't want to until we know for sure what's going to happen. But we'll share that with you. Hopefully by next week, the crystal ball will kind of clear up a little bit and show a little clearer image of what we'll be doing next year. And we'll tell you more about that next week.
In the meantime, we're going to be getting ready for the Guadalupe Reyes Marathon.
Yes, it just started. It starts with the Dia de la Virgen de Guadalupe, and that is celebrated on the 12th of December. And then the marathon is not a running marathon, it's a party marathon. So what it's all about is just like seeing friends and family, going out, some drinking, so a lot of eating, and it's like a test of your like.
Wait, let me clarify. The origin of it is that you're supposed to drink every day between.
What?
Yeah, you're supposed to drink alcohol every day.
Who said?
That's the
official.
We have a video on it. We'll link it here.
I thought it was food or drink. Just partying.
I think it's partying implied. So But needless to say, we're probably not going to be drinking every single day, but we'll do our best.
Drinking tea today.
Drinking water. Anyway, happy holidays to you.
Whatever you celebrate, enjoy. I hope you're enjoying this season. I hope your weather is good. And we will see you next week with hopefully more news, exciting news. Feliz Navidad. Cheers.
Cheers. Salud.